Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Abdul Ghaffar Abbasi here. Today we will discuss the last topic of the HSC Part I class, that is limiting reactant of the chapter number 1, Introduction to the Fundamental Concepts of Chemistry. So first of all, what is limiting reactant? Definition: the substance which produces least amount of the products when it is completely consumed in a chemical reaction is called the limiting reactant. Number 1 definition related to the limiting reactant is that the substance which produce least amount of the products, in other words we can say that it will limitize the amount of the product. Second one, which is very important definition related to the limiting reactant, that a reactant which is initially consumed in the chemical reaction. As in the reaction there are two reactants, one is limiting reactant and other is excess reactant. Limiting reactant is one which is initially consumed in the chemical reaction. So in a chemical reaction, one reactant is limiting and another is the excess reactant. So this was the concept related to the limiting reactant. In a chemical reaction, say suppose this is the chemical reaction like A plus B, it will produce AB. This will be the reactant side and this will be the product side, and these are the two reactants. One will be excess and one will be limiting reactant, and it will produce the amount of the product. So now one topic was what is the limiting reactant, and second topic was how to calculate the limiting reactant, which is very important. There are some rules how to calculate the limiting reactant. Number 1 is that you must have to write a balanced chemical equation. Second one, to calculate the number of moles. Third, to identify the limiting reactant. Fourth, then you will be also able to identify the excess reactant, and last we can calculate the mass of the product. These are the 5 different rules related to the calculation of the limiting reactant. Now we are directly going to calculate the limiting reactant. The example is this one, example number 1, which is in your textbook. So this is the example number 1. Sodium thiosulfate can be prepared by the reaction which is given below, like sodium sulfide and sodium carbonate, sulfur dioxide, they will react, and then what will happen? Sodium thiosulfate will be produced and CO2 gas also. So this is the reaction. And what is the question? How many grams of sodium thiosulfate? Means the step number 5th is being asked, that calculate the mass of the product will be produced when 200 grams of each 3 reactants like sodium sulfide, sodium carbonate and sulfur dioxide are reacting together. So the mass is given, that is 200 of the each reactant. Now how we can solve it? By these steps which I have mentioned. Write a balanced chemical equation. This is the balanced chemical equation, and we have also written here the mole ratio, like 2 and then 1, 4 and 3 and 1. This is the mole ratio of this chemical equation. Then second one is that to calculate the number of moles. So how can we calculate the number of moles? By given mass divided by the molar mass. So given mass for these all reactant is 200, and then we will divide it with the molar mass of the molecule AR or MR of these compounds. That will be 78 will be sodium sulfide, and for the sodium carbonate that will be 106, and for the sulfur dioxide that will be 64. So when you will divide these all, you will get the answer 2.56 moles of the sodium sulfide, 1.886 moles of the sodium carbonate, 3.125 moles of the sulfur dioxide. These are the number of moles which we people have calculated through the rule number 2. Now we will go to the rule number 3 to identify the limiting reactant. Number Yes, how can we how can we identify the limiting reactant? A, number of moles of sodium carbonate, sodium thiosulfate from the sodium carbonate. How many number of moles we can get from the sodium sulfide? 2 moles. As you go to this equation, 2 moles of sodium sulfite will produce the 3 moles of sodium thiosulfate. So 2 moles of sodium sulfide will produce the 3 moles of sodium thiosulfide. If moles we have calculated, that is 2.56 moles of the sodium sulfide will produce the number of moles of the sodium thiosulfide. Now look at here, 2x is equal to 2.56 moles multiplied by 3 will be the moles of this one. So x, when we will write the x as a subject here, and then 2 will be divided with this equation. So 2.56 multiplied by 3 will be divided by 2. Answer will be 3.84 moles of sodium thiosulfide, that is the product, will be produced. So sodium sulfite will produce 3.84 moles. As initially we have discussed that limiting reactant will produce the least number of products. So we have calculated the number of mass of the product, that is 3.84 by the sodium sulfide. Now we are moving towards the B. How many moles of sodium thiosulfide can be produced by the sodium carbonate? In the similar way, we can say 1 mole of sodium carbonate will produce these 3 moles of sodium thiosulfide. So similarly we write the equation 1x into moles multiplied by 3. So x will be equal to 1.886 multiplied by 3 divided by 1, 5.65 moles of sodium thiosulfide will be produced by the sodium carbonate. Now the last one is that how many moles of sodium thiosulfide will be produced from the sulfur dioxide. So 4 moles of sulfur dioxide will produce the 3 moles of the sodium thiosulfide. Similarly we will write 4x number of moles and multiply by 3. So x will be 3.125 multiplied by 3 divided by 4, that will be 2.34 moles of sodium thiosulfide will be produced by the sulfur dioxide. 2.34, 5.65 and this one 3.86. So it is very much clear that which will be the limiting reactant which will produce least number of the product. Sodium sulfur dioxide will be limiting reactant. Hence sulfur dioxide will be limiting reactant because it will give the least number of moles, that is 2.34 moles. Number 4th is to identify the excess reagent. Limiting reactant is the sodium carbonate, that will give the 1.88 moles. Then last one is that to calculate the mass of the product. How can we calculate the mass of the product? With the help of the limiting reactant. Mass of the sodium thiosulfide will be equal to moles calculated multiplied by molar mass. So the moles which we have calculated, that is 2.3634 multiply the molar mass of the sodium thiosulfide is 158, which is given in the question paper. Now the last, when you multiply it, you will get the same answer which is in your textbook, that is 369.72 grams of the sodium thiosulfide. This is about the limiting reactant. We have calculated the one problem which is in your text related to limiting reactant. I hope you understood this topic, and I want your comments related to this topic. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.